Good morning. Happy See You Lead Day, everyone. So fun. My name is Mindy May, and I'm here to talk this morning about leading through influence from honestly the greatest leader that we have ever seen, ever known, could ever learn from, and that is Jesus himself. Okay? So the one thing I want you to take away from this portion today is that influence really has nothing to do with position or title, but it has everything to do with who you are. Okay? It's a mentality. It's about the conduct of your life, how you carry yourself, your own character. Okay, so that's where it starts. And so we want to learn from Jesus about his influence. How many of you know those people? I call them thermostat people. They just walk into the room and they have the ability to just change the temperature in the room. Do y'all know those people? Metaphorically? Okay. They walk in and some of them you're like, man, you are so joyful, you are so happy. Every time they walk in, they just make the room feel like it has sunshine in it. Okay, Kimmy Powell, where you at? Okay. All right. Other people, though, you walk into the room and you make me nervous, okay? You're a little high-strung for whatever reason, and you're just like, wow, what mood are you going to be in today? So whether you have good influence or bad influence, it's what impact are you having on the environment around you, okay? And I think Jesus was one of those people. He truly had influence everywhere that he went. Constantly, we see over and over and over again in the New Testament through his earthly ministry. People are asking the question, who is this man? Is he the Christ? What is going on here? What is he about? Anywhere he went, he had influence, okay? So one of the stories that I want to look at is in John 8. We're going to walk through just 5 things that we learn about influence from Jesus himself, okay? This is another adulterous woman. We didn't plan that, okay? All right, so what we have is a situation here where more than anything, the Pharisees, the leaders, the scribes, they're all very confused about who is this Jesus. They're very concerned and challenged by him, so they're really trying to catch him in a trap. So what we have in this story is Jesus, per usual, is out at the temple teaching, right? He's there, and in the midst of the crowd, the Pharisees come and they bring this adulterous woman, throw her in the midst, and they say, Jesus, this woman was caught in adultery. According to the law of Moses, she's supposed to be stoned. But what do you say? They're trying to challenge him, okay? This is what we call an impossible position. This is tough. And Jesus has to discern wisely, what steps am I going to take next? Because he could either defend the woman and defy the law of Moses, which he's not really interested in doing in this moment, or defend the law of Moses and publicly humiliate this woman. Neither of which was he really interested in doing. So what do we learn about Jesus' influence in this moment? Because I think it's really interesting, because you remember what he says. He just is there teaching, draws a line in the sand, and gently says, let him who is without sin throw the first stone at her. Immediately, he levels the playing field. So the first thing we learn about Jesus' influence is that he always brings grace and truth, right? You have the leaders up here and the woman who's caught, and by this one subtle statement, he tips the scales and puts it back at neutral. Everyone in this scenario is within sin. Literally, the only person who had the right to throw a stone, according to what Jesus just said, was himself. Let him who is without sin throw the first stone. And Jesus didn't do that. So he's saying, okay, Pharisees, you got some wrong here, but the woman also did wrong. So we learned that he brought grace and truth. He needed to be gracious, he needed to bring truth, and he needed to do that in a really intentional moment. So we have the grace and truth piece, okay? But the next thing we see is that he also treated everyone with dignity. He could have very easily just called out the wrong in the moment. And he did that in a subtle way. He could have looked at this woman who did wrong. It needed to be attended to. Okay? He could have looked at her and said, how dare you defile something that God had created good and beautiful and destroy marriage and all the things. He could have come at her publicly. He could have also looked at the Pharisees and said, how dare you, you arrogant people. Why do you want to publicly shame this woman? Okay? But he didn't do that. He walked into this and said, again, level the playing field. You're all sinners, and we have to address that. So came with grace and truth, but he treated them with dignity. But he also acted subtly. And this is probably one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn in my own leadership and trying to have influence. Those of you that know me well, it can be pretty expressive. I get very excited easily. I also get annoyed very easily. And so I had to learn a lot about Jesus' leadership just in this one story, because he acted subtly. He wasn't reactionary. He did a very gentle moment, a gentle rebuke is what we would call this moment. Because sometimes you need to learn in your leadership to influence a situation well, it requires you stepping back, It requires you stepping back and de-escalating a situation for a second so that you can then learn appropriate, wise next steps forward. It's not always about the direct words that you say that are your influence, or the people that you put in place, or the big decisions that you make about money and all these things. Those are parts of a job of leadership, but the influence is the really important part, and sometimes that requires de-escalating. Jesus was listening, he heard the questions, he knew what was going on, but he needed to also maintain the peace in the situation. And that just required him to be subtle. So dignity and truth and grace and subtle actions. And then the fourth one is that Jesus knew that people were watching. And that's part of his influence as well. Everywhere he went, he knew that people were watching his actions. And that can be pretty terrifying sometimes, honestly, when you're in leadership positions and you're going places, okay? But it doesn't matter what position you hold, it's who are you? What temperature are you setting in the room? People are watching and paying attention to your character, and are you resembling Christ in that? It wasn't a surprise to Jesus that they were trying to trap him in this moment. He knew what was happening, he knew what was going on, but it wasn't just the Pharisees and the woman in this moment, there was a whole crowd trying to figure out, how's he going to impact this moment? What's he going to do? Condemn the woman? Is he going to uphold the law of Moses? Where's he going to go with this? Okay? And so he knew that. He knew people were watching, and he knew that that was significant. And the fifth thing that we see is that Jesus calls them to something higher. His influence was not just, pick a side here. Or it wasn't just to neutralize the situation, to de-escalate it and give wisdom. He also, through that, called them to something higher. In the story, you remember, once he said, let him who is without sin throw the first stone, the Pharisees started to just go away. It started with the older ones. They knew, okay, we probably shouldn't pick up a stone right now, right? So they just started to walk away. So finally he looks at the woman and says, who's here to condemn you? And she says, no one. And he says, neither will I. But what does he tell her to do next? He says, go and sin no more. He calls her up. He didn't just offer the grace, he also offered the truth. He called her to something higher and said, go and sin no more. Is that the type of influence that you have on people's lives? Are you the type of person that as you're walking around, people trust the knowledge, the wisdom that you have because it's grounded in God's word? Do they trust your character? And do they recognize you as a person that is having a positive influence that is causing them to fix their eyes on Jesus, to strive after things that are higher than themselves, which is Christ? Are you calling people to holiness by mimicking Jesus in your own life? And one of the examples I want to share, again, I told you I've learned a lot about this passage because, again, it's so subtle, but it's so powerful, is just in my own role here at the university. Believe it or not, I didn't sign up to do discipline. That wasn't really what I set out to do. My heart and background is counseling, so my heart for ministry has always been, when the bottom is falling out for people, I come in and help kind of restore, help give hope and truth and to help them in those situations. So when I got this aspect of discipline put on that, it was really important to me to make sure that I was doing discipline as discipleship. What does that look like? Because we know that part of God's character is discipline, but he does that with so much unconditional love that I don't naturally possess. So that is through him. And one of the sweetest stories was from several years ago. There was a girl that I was walking with through some things. And when I say she was a hot mess, I'm not kidding. Anything that could require disciplinary action, check the box, she was there. So it was one of those situations where I honestly didn't have much of a choice of next steps. But through that process, she became a believer. And this is rare, but she allowed me to be a person again to, even though I'm doing things that I feel like in the moment are kind of hurting her, even though that's not the intention. Okay, she's not liking the outcome or liking the result. She's also allowing me to come alongside, which is a really sweet thing in life. But it wasn't so much my influence that I was astounded by. It was the influence of Christ in her life as she's coming to know him more and more and understanding more of God's character. And sweetly, she allowed me to be a part of her life even after she was gone from Cedarville. And I really appreciated that, just to see the power of Christ in our lives, okay? But part of that came through encouraging her to be in the Word, encouraging her to know what being influenced by Jesus would look like in her own life, but then also hoping that my life would be a model of that to her as well. Knowing that with all the flaws that are here, that again, Christ is transforming all of our lives to serve him well. And that's always been a hope of mine, is that, Lord, help me to love them well. Help me to love like you do, and help all of my actions to be exemplary of your own character. I want you all to see Jesus. And I know we don't do all that perfectly. We all try to do that. We're not perfect in that. But again, are you the type of person who is trying to influence for the kingdom? We hope so. Let's pray together. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for Jesus. We thank you for the fact that he was so good in his earthly ministry and that you are still so good to us today. Lord, we thank you for these stories where we learn about his own character so that we know how to model that in our own lives. Lord, we pray that today as we learn more about just character and leadership, but just you, that we would be tender to your word and softened to how you're challenging us to do better things and to point others to yourself. In your name, amen.